ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಈಗ ಬೇಡ ಇದಿಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ಲತ್ತಿದ್ರು ಮಾಡಿ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡಿ. ಅಪ್ಪಾಜಿ ಗೌಡ್ರು ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಇಂಟರ್ನ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ ರಿಲೇಷನ್ ಯುಎಸ್ ಮೆಂಬರ್ ಹೇಳಿ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ. ಪಾಪ ನಿನ್ನೆ ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡೆ ನಾನು, ಎಷ್ಟು ಆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಆಗಿ ಓಡಾಡೋರು ಇದಕ್ಕೆ. ಬೋರ್ಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಸ್ಟಡೀಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಇದ್ರು. ಎಲ್ಲ ತಗೊಬರೋಣ.
Ma'am, please let me know when we can start.
We'll start.
Yes.
Okay, with the permission of Honorable Vice Chancellor, the University of Mysore, Professor G. Hemant Kumar, who had a marathon of meetings every day, including today, we are privileged, honored to mark the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, that is the 75th anniversary of our great country. And we all are lucky today. We all are lucky today. Am I audible? Any problem?
No issue, sir.
Great. So before we start the conference today, we also note that one of very senior colleague of our University of Mysore, he just said goodbye to us. Unfortunately, he was a very distinguished member of our University of Mysore family, Professor G. Appa Rao. He was heading the Department of Anthropology. He has represented India on various forums. So unfortunately, we lost him, and it is the right platform to pay homage to him. So may I request all of our distinguished guest speakers and teachers to observe a 30-second silence to pray for him. We start now. Thank you. Thank you all. So I just thank everyone for joining us in commemorating one of our colleague, Professor Appaji Gowda, Department of Anthropology. We pray for his family, and we hope he will be back between us somehow as a rebirth, as we believe. Today is also the occasion of the birthday of Krishna. So being a Hindu, I extend my congratulations to all of my teachers, and especially the Indians living abroad in Australia, in Spain, in different countries. So happy Janmashtami to all of you. Some of you might be having a fasting. So we'll try to make this session as condensed as possible. So it's very fresh and delighting and honorful to see all of you have joined again. Just a few days back, we celebrated the 75th anniversary. And from the ramparts of Red Fort, we heard what is the vision of India for the coming 25 years. So university decided rightly that being an academic forum, being a think tank, it is wise to listen to academicians, ambassadors, and other guardians. How do we see India going ahead from now? And what we have, how do we learn from our mistakes? We know there's a lot of talk about what we have achieved in different realms of our development, but today we are going to divide the whole session in two sections. We will talk about what we have done, but our major focus is on what we are going to achieve in various areas. So as per the rule of this conference, Mysore Global Forum, co-hosted by University of Mysore, Department of IR, and BRICS Institute, New Delhi. It is an honor, first of all, me to speak our distinguished scholars, who are scholars and ambassadors and distinguished royal fellows. I can see Professor Punendra Jain from Australia. It's a little late for him, but is a delighting moment for all of us, because recently he was being awarded the fellowship of Australian Society of Humanities. Right, sir? If you can correct me. So again, we have Professor, scholar, ambassador, scientist, Ambassador Smita Purushottam, who is heading right now Sitara. Sitara stands for Society for Indigenous Technology and Advanced Research Accelerator. And because of Sitara, today, sir, the launch of 5G, which we see successful in India, Sitara and Sitara's friends and Sitara's colleagues have worked very hard to launch first time in history of our independent India, indigenous technology for 5G without any Chinese involvement. And, sometimes the people behind the scene are not recognized, but since I'm involved with Madam Sitara, so I would like to say that at this massive global forum, we would like to extend congratulations to whole Sitara team for working so hard for this 5G, a fair deal for Indian science. It's a great day for Indian science. So ma'am, once you get the stage, please do tell us, how did you manage to influence our policy on this aspect? And the third speaker today is a little early for him, but it's great to see him, because before moving to Spain, I think he was heading one of the India's best thing, that is India's culture, ICCR. And during his tenure, ICCR has added very new chapters, and very few people knew about ICCR, what it is doing. It was a department under MEA. But now I think most of us in India itself know that the role of ICCR in the last 25 years, including promoting yoga at a global level and promoting Indian culture, music, and dance, is very, very important. So we again congratulate Ambassador Dinesh Patnaik, who is a scholar, who is also a MBA from Kolkata University. So he knows how to tell the India story to the Indians and also to the foreign friends. We'll be delighted to hear from him in detail how India's image is changing or has emerged. I mean, we are a cultural soft power, cultural power, but what about our economic strength, our technology, our science and technology, our academics? China is having, lakhs and lakhs of foreign students, but in India, we hardly have 7,000 students. Mysore University, one of the oldest university in India, have more than, I think, 700 students from different countries. I hope with the help of ICCR, we can extend it further. So as the topic today is very clear that we are not talking about India at 75, we are talking about India at 100. What the new India is going to achieve. I mean, people all over the world are talking, this is India's time. It's our golden time and our time has come. And there are various background stories about that. It's not only that our time has come, it is also true that the world on another side is, with this China, America is, going back, deglobalizing. At that stage, how India can play a global role and continue the momentum of growth, which we need minimum to continue our, keep talking about rise of India story. So, without further ado, we would like to invite one of the senior most scholar of computer science in India and a great administrator and also member of Indian Science Congress Association and also awarded by various awards, including Upadhyay Award, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor G. Hemant Kumar, sir, to bless us and guide us further for this forum. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'm very happy. So many dignitaries on the screen and different places of the world have joined here. Dinesh Patnaik, Embassy of India from Spain, and Smita Purushottam from Sitara, and Professor Punendra Jain, Emeritus Professor from Australia, and N. Rajkumar, VS from VSM. The organizer is Binod Singh, Director of BRICS in India, and also Dr. Bharati Matt, who is the coordinator of this program, and many other what we call student researchers who are online. I'm very happy the Department of International Relations and BRICS Institute India is organizing many of these type of seminars. So I'm very happy to be associated with this. So with this, I want to tell few what we call words about this seminar about in this context. India is the largest democracy democratic country in the world, and it is trying to be one of the developed nations in next 25 years. The sacrifice made by the peoples from the different sections of the society to achieve the independence cannot be forgotten and always be written in history. We have just what we call celebrated our 75th year Amrit Mahotsav. So which was what we call, which made the whole country to remember the history of the independence. Last 75 years since the independence marked by innumerable achievements and also challenges too. Recently, the Prime Minister spoke about the India's achievement at midst of the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic and outlined the vision of India at 100. The vision in the form of the Pancha Pran, that is goal of development of India, remove the trace of the colonial mindset and take the pride of our roots, unity and sense of duty among the citizens. And for coming 25 years, when the country celebrates 100 years independence, it will lead India to be part of the global power. So that is the 5 concepts that has been given by the Prime Minister. India has always adhered to a foreign policy which is independent and maintains the strategic autonomy. Even in geopolitical circumstances that compelled India to enter into the alliance like cooperation with major powers. It did not become any less autonomous as seen in the case of blossoming the relationship with Israel and also the maintenance the neutrality with Russia and Ukraine crisis. India has secured its freedom and sovereignty and also territorial integrity by balancing the great power equations with diplomacy. However, the present geopolitical scenarios present a challenge to the strategic autonomy. Therefore, as economic goal to reduce the dependence on the imports and the critical commodities, the aim of the foreign policies should be to maintain the strategic autonomy. India is one of the largest arms importers in the world, enhancing the defense technology. Achieving the customization and the uniqueness is important for India to develop a surprise element in its nemesis. For encouraging the industries and startups, the Defense Minister of India has stated that research and development is crucial in achieving the self-reliance and in the defense sector. Today, the world is talking about the holistic healthcare, but when it talk about the holistic healthcare, it look towards the India's yoga, India's Ayurveda, India's holistic lifestyle. So this is our legacy that we are proving the world with. The world is being what we call influenced by it today. So this initiatives proves the India has potential to become the global power in next 25 years. India will definitely take up the major reforms in next 25 years. Everyone has to do their bit to achieve all of this, and there should not be any obstacle and to stop the country achieving in its dreams. With this, I congratulate what we call the Department of International Relations and the BRIC Institute, and also all the speakers today who is going to exchange their ideas in this connection. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir. You are a great visionary. And as you said that for the coming 25 years, India is all set to become a developed nation. And we'll achieve this goal at any cost, of course, with the help of our friends across the globe. India is not growing alone. India will grow together with the help and partnership of countries across the world. So that's why, as Vice Chancellor mentioned, that we will maintain the strategic autonomy. We will not choose a side. But at the same time, The questions today we are going to discuss includes that when India is rising and the world focuses on India, it's a very difficult time and challenging time for us. We have to find a balancing act, especially when the Eurocentric world is vanishing and a so-called new Indo-Pacific world is coming up. The role of India becomes very important. So we have to discuss today how we can maintain our friendship and historical bond with all the countries, whether it's Asia, Africa, Europe, Arab world, and America. And at the same time, we don't compromise with the quality of growth we have. World is facing the challenge of climate change, as Vice Chancellor said. But at the same time, we cannot compromise our minimum GDP growth rate so that we can alleviate still some Indians who are not living up to our aspirations. In a free India, we don't want to see any poor people. As some of our today's speakers have mentioned in some of their previous speeches, India is the only country, I think I am quoting Ambassador Dinesh Patnaik, that after post-World War, that is 1945, India is the only country which got democracy, and at any cost we have maintained it. This itself is a miracle in human history. So these are the achievements which world knows it, but they don't mention it. They're shy about that. The second point I wanted to mention today is that during the pandemics, India did provide vaccine, largest vaccine to all over the world. Again, the world is shy to notice it. So our technology, our contribution, our culture is well appreciated, but still we need to talk about this. And today, this is the right forum. So in such a difficult environment, I think we will start. I'll pass on the forum to my colleague who is at University of Mysore Forum, Professor Bharti Hiremath. I think she will take it forward on the issues we're discussing today, that in different realms, in strategic realms, and as Vice Chancellor mentioned, still India is buying a lot of arms and equipment from different countries. A lot of our taxpayers' money goes abroad, especially to Russia and America. So how we can become Atmanirbhar in this field? I think University of Mysore plays an important role in this area, and also the Sitara as an organization for last few years. So Professor Bharti Hiremath, this stage is yours. Please take it forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Vinod, for giving the platform to me. And sir, once again, good afternoon from Mysore Global Forum. For us, it is afternoon. Sorry for troubling you in such an early morning. Sir Patnaik, sir, I take your permission to continue the discussion, sir. And food and sir, sorry to trouble you. Madam also, frequently we are troubling you, madam, including you in the discussion. And also I'm very grateful to have you people, such a great personalities who are and for our discussion, making our department to reach globally, sir. And sir, Patnaik, sir, how do you review the question, sir? Simultaneously, all the three questions are, how do you answer? Is it okay if I ask all the questions at a time, sir?
I can hear you very clearly. That's not a problem. It's actually early in the morning, 6 o'clock here in the US. I'm here in the US, so a little early, but that's okay. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you, sir. As our Honorable Vice Chancellor mentioned, our Prime Minister outlined the vision for India at 100. Recently, India signed an agreement with Spain for the acquisition of 56 Airbus aircraft at a cost of euro 2.5 billion. This contract represents the great potential of two countries. On one hand, it shows the importance of Spain's defense industry, and on the other hand, it contributes to the Make in India policy. Sir, considering this agreement, what will be the future of Indo-Spain relationship, and how it will help India to get success in its path to global power? And secondly, sir, moving on to the second question. Recently, India bagged 61 medals at Commonwealth Games. Indian culture, yoga, and Ayurveda are having a leading role in representing India globally. Keeping this in mind, how ICCR will play an important role in enhancing India's multilateral relations, because you work You have a great experience in working in ICCR, sir. Many of our scholars from, they are getting ICCR scholarships, sir.
No, thank you, Dr. Bharti Hiramat. Nice to be here on this forum. But I wanted to also start off with the whole idea of India at 100 path to global power, because it's important for us to understand that before I go into other specific issues. But I for one, do not understand this concept of global power, because if I really look at it, we already are a global power. If you look at what is a global power, I mean, even as far back as in 1909, Lord Curzon, if you remember, had said about India, it had said the central position of India, its magnificent resources, its teeming multitude of men, its great trading harbors, its reserve of military strength, all these assets of precious value. And India, we are sure, and this is Lord Curzon saying in 1909, that India at any stage will exercise a predominant influence over the destinies of Persia, which is Iran now, Afghanistan in the north. It can veto any rival in Tibet in the northwest, and it can exert great pressure upon China. And it is one of the guardians of the autonomous existence of Siam. I mean, you're talking about 1909, they were talking about potential of India. And even today, we are talking about the potential of India. But if you really look at it, we are already there to a large extent, because when you say global power, you talk about a nation or a political entity which has the power to influence the course of world events. That's the description of global power. Any country which has the power to influence the course of global events. And India today has got that power. If you look at it in any way, if you look at it, economic strength, military strength, political diplomatic strength, or soft power, we already are a voice which people listen to in the world. And this is good. But what we are talking about here, when we say India at 100 path to global power, we are really looking at, are we a superpower, not a global power? Global power we already are. That's not a big thing. Are we a superpower? What is a superpower? A superpower is a power which is a dominant influence and exerts huge influence to be able to change the course of events, not just influence, to be able to project power. So the main thing about a superpower is the ability to change things which the other person may not want. And this superpower status, basically, when you look at it, has 4 categories to it. I mean, this is the old theory of power, which is the 4 categories. You have to have economic power, you have to have military power, you have to have political and diplomatic power, and you have to have cultural power. And today, in the 22nd century, you have to add technological power, because without technology, no country is going to become a superpower. And the world says you only have one superpower, because all these, look, if you put it, it only applies to the US. The others are all aspiring superpowers. You have the top 7 to 8 countries, even China, which thinks of itself already as a superpower, is still an aspiring superpower, because it still has a long way to go before it can reach the levels which the US does. So when we look at all this, so we are looking at India at 100, how do we really become a superpower? Now, we can't become a superpower unless we have a system which is there to be able to exert influence and to be able to project power. You know, having power is one thing, but the ability to project power is another thing. We do not have still the capacity to project power. We have a lot of very, very strong things, very powerful things within the country, but the ability to project it. Today, the US can deploy its 6th fleet, 7th fleet, the army, it can put in resources of a very large level. It can put in human resources. I mean, I always laugh at India when I say that the Ministry of External Affairs in Delhi actually has less people than the American embassy in Delhi. I mean, we are supposed to be 1 billion people, twice the size or more than of the US, and we still have less people in our Ministry of External Affairs than does the US embassy in Delhi. I mean, that's the way we are. We do not know how to project power. So my whole thing about the path to global power in the next 25 years is to do this very basic thing, which is 3. When I look at it, it's 3 things. One is to be able to become self-sufficient and strong economically, because without being economically strong, there is no way you can be a global or a superpower. And when you say economically strong, what do you mean? You have to have at least 5% of the world economy. If the world GDP is 50 trillion, you have to be at least 7.5 trillion. I mean, not 5 trillion, because as the world expands, your percentage decreases. So you have to have at least 5% of world GDP. And where are we now? We are at 2.6, 2.7%. China took almost 4 decades, 25 years to go from being less developed from being developing to almost developed status. And that too with a growth of about 8 to 10% a year, compounded for 25 years. Now we need to grow at that stage for 25 years to actually reach a stage where we can call ourselves developed. And that takes a lot of doing. You need resources of a huge nature. You need everything. Prime Minister has a dream, and we all have the dream. And I'm glad all of us share the dream. But to have the dream, we need to put in systems which can function and to be able to deliver. And right now, our systems, unfortunately, I'm a government servant and I'm not supposed to say this, but unfortunately, our systems still do not deliver the kind of things that we are supposed to deliver. We will. We have great people working. And today, the best part about what government is doing is there's a large cohort of non-government people, some ex-government, of course, like my good friend here, Smita Purushottam. There are a whole lot of people who have left government or who are working with government to work together with the government to do what we're doing today. For example, I'll give you what you talked in the beginning, the C-295 aircraft. Now, why I like this deal with Spain is it's the first deal which is a completely make in India. It's not an upgradation. It's a purchase of 56 aircraft from Airbus Spain. And this 56 aircraft, the first 16 are supposed to be built in Spain and handed over, and the rest 40 will have to be built in India. And when you say build in India, it's a complete make in India. Out of the 13,000 or so movable parts of a plane, you will be making almost 95% of all those parts in India. So except for the avionics, the engine, and the electronic warfare and other suites, the rest all have to be manufactured in India. Now, when you're manufacturing in India, you're talking about carrying an entire ecosystem, the entire supply chain of this aircraft to India. Now, that's a huge thing. And that, when you're looking at timeline, it's 4 years down the line, 5 years down the line, when they have to start manufacturing the first aircraft. We need to start putting in place that ecosystem. We still haven't decided where we are going to do the assembly of the aircraft. We need to put an ecosystem. We need to attract the aerospace industry from across Europe and across the world to come there because they are the supply chain for the Airbus planes. An Airbus plane needs 13,000 parts, and 13,000 parts will have to be produced in India. Now, how do you produce in India unless you have an ecosystem for producing that? So we need to start working on these. We have all the resources necessary. We have the technical capacity. In fact, we are today supplying a lot of the parts to across the world. So what we need to do is put all this together. So I'm sorry to be saying this, but we need to work together to make sure we do. For example, what you said, the second question, which is culture and sports. Now, culture and sports, we are a billion-plus country. Getting 60 medals in the Commonwealth where we are fighting at somebody, or 10 medals in the Olympics, is not a great thing. We need to do much better than that. That's just the beginning. Culturally, we have so much culture, but look at our projection. Our projection is weak. In fact, Bollywood has better projection than our cultural heritage that we have. Because Bollywood has projection because it is able to give resources, money, the capability to do it. You have to learn how to project your power abroad. And to project power abroad, you have to think big. You cannot think in those small socialist terms of, 1 lakh rupees here and 5 lakh rupees there. You have to think in terms of large production. When was the last time India had a massive production in West End or Broadway, or production which traveled across the world? Look at what the Chinese do. Look at what the Russians did. Even though Russians are actually a small power in the world, their GDP is equal to Spain. I mean, if you really, we look at Russia as a massive power, but if you look at it economically, they're very small, but yet they're able to project themselves much better. And that's what we need to learn and put together in the next few years that we are going to look forward. India at 100, if we have to make it a dream come reality, we have to start putting in a place, a system which is able to develop at home and project it abroad. And for that, all of us need to play a part. Thank you, Dr.
Enlightening and optimistic view. Really, I'm very happy and thankful once again for making us to have a confidence that India will become a superpower. Thank you for that. Sir, as an academician, we have one more vision in connection with the Nari Shakti, sir. A little moving on to the next question. Just I will talk on Nari Shakti, sir. The honor of women is going to be one of the biggest resources for the development of our country. Women are achieving the highest positions of a country now. Former President Madam Pratibha Patil, now present President Draupadi Murmu, and like Madam Smita Purushottam, all the women are enjoying the higher positions in a country. And we have also witnessed that all women crew created a history by completing the mission independently in the North Arabian Sea. ISRO's SSLV D1, attempted by 75 young girls, is an example for India's true democracy. CSIR became a model for world when Madam Nalathambi Kalai Selvi became a first woman DC in the 80 years history of CSIR. So keeping all this in mind, how regarding the Nari Shakti in mind, will India's democratic principles help it to become a biggest successful democratic country, thus leading to the path of, as you told, superpower, sir?
I'm sorry to again sound very pessimistic sometimes. What we do in India is we look at a few successes and we think we are doing very well. It is not about Satya Nadella or Sundar Pichai at Google and Microsoft, which tells you that we are great, intelligent people. It's when the poor, common people actually get the basic access to resources of life is when you have succeeded. It's women have succeeded not when a woman had CSIR or we do wonderful in other fields, but it is only when the common women can walk the streets of India without fear, have all the access that they need. That is when we have succeeded. We can always dwell on the success of a few and say it is wonderful, we are doing well, but are we really doing well? Are our women, our children, our grandchildren are able to go walk down the path, get a job where they want, access what they want, be able to move freely, to be able to dress freely, to be uninhibited? I mean, even a developed country like the US goes back on its abortion thing because there is a whole lot of paternalistic, patriarchal men who are still out there putting women down, and India has no less about it. Our systems, our whole ethos has been to put the women down. I'm sorry, Dr. Bharti Hiramat, I'm saying because I've seen it happen across. I have 2 daughters, so I have to make the world a much safer place for them than anybody else. But my whole thing is, we will succeed when we can get all those people to succeed, when the people at the bottom level of the rung, when women are doing well at every stage, where a woman can climb into a bus and go and work across without fear of being hassled or harassed, can wear any clothes she wants, whatever she wants, without being told that she is provocative or anything else. So that is the day when India will succeed. And India has all of it. If you look at our ethos, our culture ethos, our ethos is about openness, about liberalism, about being able to do things in a good manner. Whether it is Hinduism, whether it's Muslim, Christianity, or whatever, the Indianness teaches us to be nice and good and kind and being able to help people, our ethos of helping people. It's a wonderful thing. Somehow, like I told you, we are unable to get that into place. But yes, we need to do that. That is the reason I have always believed we need to start from 2 places. One is schools. Schools is where we inculcate values in our children. And the schools are very important crucibles where values in children come in. And that we need to do. What values? Whether it's sports, are we making sports mandatory in schools? No. Culture, are we making it mandatory for every student to learn some cultural instrument or singing or art or dance or music or theater, anything? No, it's not compulsory. We make them just study, pass exams without picking up any cultural values. Why I'm saying culture? Because this is something I used to do at ICCR. I used to fight with Ministry of Culture. I told them simply, please, in the new education policy, make it mandatory for a person to be able to graduate class 12 unless they have not done one cultural item, anything. You can do singing, you can do. And they said, what's the use? I said, because two things. One is you're creating a situation where the young people have something to do, which is a cultural strength. Second is they learn about the culture of your country, which is very important because you're not learning about it. Third, which is most important, you're creating the audience for the future. It's the sitarist and the dancer who will go to watch a sitar performance, a dance performance. What is happening today? Kids watch only Bollywood or TikTok. And so when they grow up, they go and watch these things only. That is what they do. Earlier, people used to grow up with culture in the house. So they used to grow up and want to go to see a theater, want to see a Bharatanatyam show, want to go and see a dance performance. And when that happens, when there is a lot of money and theaters actually have people coming to watch them, that is when the money flows in and other people start creating this economic environment. You know, cultural economy, what we call creative economy today, is about 14% of a country's GDP. 12 to 14%, bigger than any other sector, defense, IT, you name any sector. It is bigger than all of them. But do we have policies for the cultural sector? Do we have tax incentives? Do we have anything that we do for the cultural sector? Nothing, because we don't see as an economic thing. We still see it as a social thing where, you know, some people can play, dance, you do it, it's just part of your heritage, but no. And we make this differentiation. We take art and craft out, make it handicrafts, but that is your strength of your country. Where are we doing incentives to make them better? We've created a whole. So if we have to reach India at 100 in a manner in which we can really be successful, we have to empower the people at this level. And this will create an audience. We call ourselves the biggest economy in the world because we are a big consumer market. But you have to train your consumer market to buy things which are there around you. Today, the world is getting into sustainability and buying local. And we have this entire ecosystem which is to produce for local. India, you go to every village, everybody makes, you know, all our, whether it's our fabrics, our textiles, our toys, or everything were made for local, were never made for global. That's the reason they never became a global phenomenon. So let's turn it upside down and put it such a way that we create for ourselves, that we create locally. And we do what to a large extent Smita and others are doing, which is trying and make in India. Atmanirbhar is a great concept, but Atmanirbhar only happens when it is done at the lowest level. It's not when you do Atmanirbhar at a very high level. High level also has to come, but it will come when it picks up from this level only. So I'm sorry, Dr. Hiramat, I'm again diverting and taking much of your time. I'll not trouble you anymore on this.
No, sir. Thank you, sir, for your wonderful vision. Yeah, your vision, your ideas made me even more strong to work on these concepts, sir, in connection with, so India, how it can become a superpower in coming days, sir. Thank you for that, sir. And it is also, it made me even more strong, sir. And of course, sir, as you told, we need to work with together, that what the government is making policies and programs, we need to implement in a grassroots level. Then only it is possible, sir. Thank you for idea. And before leaving this platform to Brigadier Rajkumar, sir, Madam, it's an curiosity. What's your views on women and women participation in globally, Madam, from India? It's a culture of India also. Yes, of course, since ancient history, it is inbuilt in Indian history. Women are enjoying the greater position in society and as well in other places also. In connection with that, how India can become an greater power or superpower or global power in coming days, madam. It's just what's your views on this? And now I will leave the platform to Rajkumar, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. It was always an honor to be present in this global forum, and I still have the military mind, but I fully endorse what Dinesh sir said. We can't be a superpower with just by saying it. And before I start off, my first thing is, if we have to be a superpower, a movie which I always remember, 1975 vintage, Roti, Kapda aur Makan. Unless every citizen has a roti to eat, kapda to wear, and makan to stay, then only we can think of going out. And what we need to do is that let's start from the grassroots level and then go up at which you wanted. And in fact, that is the one the question which I have to ask you a little later. But first, we have traveled 75 years and a long journey, ma'am, and we are now celebrating Azadi Ka Mahotsav. I was briefly involved with one of this event with the NCC cadets just about 2 days back. But then, have we really come that way? Are we to celebrate 75 years? Have we achieved that much, ma'am? That's my first question to you, ma'am. Ma'am, am I audible?
Smita, we can't hear you.
Were you addressing me? I wasn't sure about that.
Ma'am, the question was from the chair to you first. So I thought I will start.
Okay.
Is that we have traveled a long way, 75 years, ma'am. And this is, of course, time to celebrate. But when you look at it, what is the level of achievement? And can you single out something that we still lag behind if we consider the time frame? And then we go ahead with the theme of 100 years. Ma'am, can you hear me?
Is that addressed to me?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Smita, ma'am. Smita, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. To you, ma'am. To you, ma'am.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank Professor Hiranath and Dr. Binod Singh for this kind invitation. I really enjoyed listening to Dinesh. It was refreshing and open and frank. And that's very much appreciated, in a serving officer at his level. So good to hear you, Dinesh. I largely agree with him that, we have a long way to go and we need more effective mechanisms. But what we have decided in our area to pursue in a what appears to be a limited manner, but actually, if you give me a little time, I can explain why it's not at all limited, is to focus on the R&D aspect, of development. Without technology, and Dinesh also mentioned that, no country can be great. And I find that the lack of technological orientation impacts us at every level, whether it is at the village level that you're talking about, or in education, or in attitudes to women, or just sheer economic power, geopolitical power. At every level, the lack of orientation, the lack of education at crucial stages on technology is what is hurting us the most. So that is my view. And if you allow me now, I can elaborate on it a little. So if you agree, I can speak on it a little more, including answering Dr. Binod Singh's question on how we got, government to go for 5G indigenization. So, okay, I assume that I have the floor. So basically, technology, as you see, is the foundation of geopolitical power. Why else would the Americans and the Chinese be really at each other's throats on this issue? The Russian imbroglio is more of a distraction right now, but the basic conflict is between the United States and China. And it is really premised on technological primacy. And Sitara was the only body several years ago to understand this, predict it, and warn the government about the possible consequences for us. Why is technology so important? Technology is really the foundation of economic power. If you look at it, very clearly. No less Nobel Prize winning economist Robert Solow had quantified the contribution of technology to American economic growth. And he said it's nearly 90%. So we are actually missing out on 90%, driver of growth by not emphasizing R&D enough. And that is why, in fact, I've created a graph. It's not readily available, but it shows our minuscule GDP compared to the GDP of all the other major powers, including countries with a population 10 times lower than us. And that is because we simply don't focus on R&D enough. And that is why Sitara has been focusing on it. And when you look at the most advanced economies, of course, they all have very high investment in R&D. So the other thing is, and Dinesh was posted in China, he would appreciate this. Binod also is an expert on China. The Chinese in 2016 came out with the innovation-driven development strategy. And with this, they put science and technology at the core of their national security strategy, at the core of the economic strategy, at the core of simply every initiative that the government wanted to launch. And in 2017, President Xi Jinping said that technology is the core combat capability. And that I suspect is why the Americans suddenly became quite nervous, because their defense budget is the sum of the next 9 countries' defense budgets. And yet they felt that China is coming up to challenge them, which led to this geotechnological race, as we call it. So our focus right from the beginning has been on technology. We started as the High Tech Defense Innovation Forum, and some of our ideas percolated into the Defense Ministry. The current Defense Secretary has been in touch with us. We have been meeting him regularly, planting ideas, coming up with all sorts of suggestions, not many of which have been possible to implement, but a lot of very good proposals have been, announcements have been made to curtail imports and to emphasize domestic production. A lot of contracts have been given, not enough in our view. And we feel that the private sector, which has enormous potential, has not been given its due place. I would just like to emphasize, the information and communications technology sector, because very frankly, and the younger generation would appreciate this more. That is at the basis of everything today: social life, defense, economy, etc. So we focused a lot on the information communications and technology sectors, because that underlies even defense. And we found something quite nefarious going on there. We found that most of the awards of public procurement networks were going to the Chinese. And this has enormous implications for us, because once they got entrenched in our country, and they were fairly entrenched already, then the installation of 5G would open up to massive security issues. I mean, it's still a huge security vulnerability going with foreign equipment. We've managed to get the Chinese out, but we were actually aiming for the full replacement of our networks with indigenous equipment, and that is possible. We have the companies, we have a meta resource of top companies. We just met the Deputy National Security Advisor, and before him, his predecessor, and they were all very impressed with the capabilities of the companies, that are part of our network. We're a voluntary network, so we do everything pro bono, and but our companies are top notch, and Indian companies, not our companies, Indian companies, and they should be given, we felt, a chance to build futuristic networks. So we found that there was a lot of corruption and a lot of collusion between elements of the bureaucracy and foreign equipment providers. And as a result, all the tenders were being skewed on their behalf, in their favor. And the second thing is that R&D intensive companies were not getting the support that they required, whether it was in tax incentives, whether it was from funding. One company in China, Huawei, got $75 billion of funding. So we took up these issues, the harassment of our R&D intensive companies. We took up the issue of procurement. And as you perhaps know, a lot of tenders were cancelled around the time we took this up with the government. So I'm not claiming that we led to that, but definitely our input was acknowledged. The former Deputy National Security Advisor said we had lit a fire in government because of our work, and so on. So, and the other very big cancellation was of the BSNL tender. This was going to be a nationwide tender, and it was already skewed to favor the Chinese companies. So this was withdrawn, and today Dr. Ashwini Vaishnav, our new telecom minister, whom I cannot praise enough, has issued a strong directive to his BSNL. You have to build 4G and 5G with indigenous technology. And he's given a huge revival, 1.4 trillion rupee revival package to BSNL, which hopefully will ensure that Indian technology is there in 4G. While we first emphasized 4G, is that unless we build 4G, we can't build 5G. So we focused on 4G first. Now, hopefully now this will be implemented, but let us remember that BSNL only has 10% of the domestic market. So government has to do far more to ensure markets for our companies. Only then we will then be able to create jobs for young people, who are gathered here. $500 billion of the government procurement market, a huge part of it was going abroad. We were gifting all this to foreign economies. So no jobs created here, no pull for engineering graduates, and a lot of engineering institutes are shutting down as a result. And we are what I call deindustrializing. There is a clear trend towards the manufacturing sector getting less and less share in our GDP. So in short, this is our story, and there was a lot of other work we did. But this is the gist of our story, and I hope that you are convinced that R&D is the only way to go. and that we need to increase the R&D intensity of our economy, make technology the foundation of our national development and security strategy, and then become the world power that India's numbers and India's cultural legacy not entitles us to, but positions us to assume. Thank you so much.
Brigadier Rajkumar sir. And Madam, thank you for your views on this. And now I request Ms. Renuka Hirimat on behalf of BRICS Institute, and also she is a research engineer in DRDO. She is having a small, doubt or question with you, Madam. Ms. Renuka, you can.
Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Renuka Hirimat. I'm here on behalf of BRICS Institute India. Firstly, I take this opportunity to thank all the speakers for sharing their experience and knowledge with us. As Ambassador Smita ma'am mentioned, the idea of 5G spectrum proved that India's ease of doing business is better. And ma'am, I would like to ask you how 5G spectrum will benefit Indian force, ma'am. Will it help in national security? I would like to know the scope of 5G spectrum in India. And my second question is, according to the estimates by the Indian Cellular and Electronics Association, ICEA, Taiwan accounts for more than 75% of the chips used for Indian mobile market. At the same time, domestic production of electronic products in India has increased considerably in last 5 years. In 2015 to 16, the domestic production of electronic products was INR 2.43 lakh crore. In 2020 to 21, the production increased to INR 5.54 lakh crore. Considering this, will India become Atmanirbhar in electronic system design and manufacturing? Will India become the global hub for ESDM in next 25 years? What are the challenges it will face, ma'am?
Yeah, very good questions. Thank you. So the first one is on 5G and national security. And I think I've already touched on this by saying that unless we bolt down cybersecurity right at the beginning and, have indigenous equipment, trusted indigenous equipment in place, we are going to face a lot of troubles because 5G is going to connect massive billions of appliances, billions of applications, and all this data is going to be gathered by the network providers and going to be digested by the artificial intelligence algorithms that we have basically enabled by shipping our data abroad. So one of the things that we're trying to do is take up the issue of data localization through one of our members. He's working very hard on this. And because as he very correctly put it, we have data in our country and it's all being analyzed and shipped abroad. And the brains are in another country. And ironically, these brains are Indian mostly, because we were looking at statistics of, design engineers in semiconductors. They're mostly Indian origin. And so, we're exporting our brains. We're not creating the right environment for our country people. So in 5G, to ensure national security, we need to look at the cybersecurity angle first. And secondly, we need to see how the Chinese are in so-called intelligentizing their weaponry. And that they can, what that means is that they are making them autonomous. They're infusing artificial intelligence into them. And so a lot of this combat equipment may actually become, may actually be able to take decisions on the battlefield in very little time. Because, with hypersonics and with all these very fast speed networks like 5G, the human will be removed from the equation. So you're leaving key battlefield decisions to robots, and you can just predict the outcome of that. You all may have seen the movie Terminator. So these are very, very difficult and dangerous situations, dangerous epoch that we are entering. And 5G is going to enable, because it has almost zero latency. So in real time, you can digest information, you can take decisions, and you can have a very lethal force to fight, on the other side, human capabilities and an ancient weapons park, which has not been indigenized and not been intelligentized to the extent that the Chinese have been able to. So that's the national security 5G angle. The other one was about ESTM. Yes, we are dependent on semiconductors. It's a very, very high level of complexity and sophistication of technology. Even the Americans have sort of given way in this area to countries like Taiwan, South Korea, etc. Even the Dutch have got a particular machine which the Americans don't have, and a lot of export controls have been put so that the Chinese can't access it. So let us not be under any illusion that a $10 billion grant which our government has committed for semiconductors is going to be of any great immediate help. However, I believe that the Tata's group has entered this, and they're coming in at the packaging end. The lowest end, which mind you is also extremely sophisticated, requires enormous coordination of logistics, and is very it requires a huge amount of technological input. So we need to work on this with great dedication, and I hope that the government and Tata's can work together, because we can't have 10 foundries which are producing substandard semiconductors when already countries are producing 2 nanometers worth of chips. So that was the other thing was, I think you talked about whether we could have ESTM in our country. Now, unless our countries, our companies invest in R&D, and amongst the major economies, the Indian private sector invests the least in R&D. Supposedly the public sector makes up for it, but we know the condition of the public sector, and how much they invest in cutting edge R&D, I'm not sure. So so basically, unless our companies invest in our own R&D, they will continue remaining dependent, because you may have mentioned the production, but have you mentioned the import intensity of that production? Apparently, imports from China have increased massively. So have we really succeeded? I haven't examined this, because you need to be a statistician and you need to be an economist to be able to crunch those figures, and I'm unable to do it. But what is the import intensity of that production? What is the one of the members in our Sitara network has done a study on Samsung. Samsung remits more abroad than it exports, or produces. So how much have we indigenized? How much have we gained through all these schemes? So one thing that Sitara had worked on is that to have a design-led PLI, production-linked incentive scheme, rather than focus on sales, focus on R&D, indigenous R&D, and the government has come out with that policy. So hopefully now the incentives will be given to R&D intensive companies, which is what our request has been. That means domestic R&D intensive companies. And with that, there is a chance that we have more domestic content in our high-tech production. And then, yes, we can become an electronic manufacturing hub in the future. And of course, the government has to create the right conditions for procurement also, because unless somebody procures, nobody is going to produce. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. For your views on defense sector and what are the challenges India to overcome all these obstacles. Thank you for your opinion on this, madam. And I invite Dr. Binod to take a platform towards further discussion. And also I invite Professor Purnendra Jain to express views on India's path to global power or supreme power. We have to change now.
Thank you, Bharti madam. Thank you, Smita madam. Thank you, Dinesh sir. Our thanks is always due to you for your insight. The one point I just wanted to make a small comment on Smita ma'am, that China, when I went to China, I just saw it's ruled by technocrats. So ma'am, as per your opinion, in India, in policy making, what is the involvement of technocrats? That is something, if you have time, you can explore on, ma'am. This is something I wanted to ask. I also wanted to ask Dinesh, sir, the definition of a great power is a little bit confusing to me. I will also request my next speaker, Professor Purnendra Jain, to give me a lesson on IR 101, that what is the definition of great power? I feel that ours is a regional power. Even it's a regional power, because, sir, you might have a diplomatic passport, but when I use my civilian passport and travel abroad, I don't feel that I belong to a great power, sir. Of course, no way superpower. So before, I just want to add one more line about Professor Purendra Jain, that recently, last year, I think he was decorated by Japan's Emperor's Order of the Rising Sun, gold raised with neck ribbon. So he is one of the top most Japan, China, East Asia expert, and he was born in India. And he is the most famous Indian scholar in that continent. So when it comes to Indo-Pacific, Professor Jain is the authority to tell us what is the, I mean, whether United States and these great powers are using India in the so-called game of, Indo-Pacific new, jargons, or India is really said to play a very historical role. Because in the first Cold War, I think India chose to be with Russia or whatever, I mean, not directly, as an NAM, non-alignment movement. And we have enough literature to decide whether we gain something or not. We are proud of democracy, but as Smita Madam clearly defined that we lack in R&D, China has gone far ahead of us. And if India wants to become a great power at 100, I think China is one of the major challenges, which we all agree here today. So without further ado, I invite Professor Purendra Jain from Australia, who was a little late time for him. So I apologize for asking him. He will please conclude the discussion today that how do you see India as a great power, at 100? What kind of power India will become? Will it become like China? Will it become like, I don't know which example I should give. I mean, it's very hard for me to imagine, sir. Can you please help us?
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank you and Dr. Bharati Hiremath, and I'm very happy to be on this panel with Ambassador Patnaik and Ambassador Purushottam, and I've heard them excellent presentations, and I can't agree, more than what Ambassador Patnaik has said, his frank views. The question is about India being a great power or a superpower. I always, I have been living abroad for the last 35 years. But good part of my early days and my young days, I spent in India and in Delhi. And I've got still deep connections to India. Although I have, as I said, I have lived abroad for a long period of time. So what I see today is that there are expectations of the world from India. And at the 75th independence of India, here down under, I observed for the first time, there was a great sense of enthusiasm. Not just Indian diaspora, but generally speaking, politicians and business leaders in Australia. 10 years ago, in Australia, India counted very little, but in the last 10 years, things have changed quite substantially. You have celebrations. Even Sydney Opera House was in 3 colors, tricolor, illuminated. Even in Adelaide, which is kind of a small city, we have seen places illuminated in tricolors. So that gives us a great sense of pride to us as migrants or as diasporic community. But as a scholar and an academic, I go to some of the theoretical sides of this. What is global power? What is superpower? And Ambassador Patnaik has very, beautifully illustrated what are some of the characteristics which you need. Even if, in my view, India becomes a superpower at 100, which it may. But my point is, what kind of superpower India wants to be? And Binod Singh has asked that question, will it be like China? If you project power, military power, China has been projecting military power, but no one loves China. So whether you want to have power to be loved or to be hated, I guess India should and will and would move towards acquisition of power to be loved, not to be hated. Could be feared, Machiavellian. Machiavelli told us that you don't need to be loved, you need to be feared. But hated is a different concept. So that's my question, and I haven't been able to answer myself. I just think some of the indicators, for example, economic growth in India. We have seen economic growth in India, and Ambassador Patnaik has talked about, what kind of growth do we need in the next 25 years for India to be called an economic superpower, at least. And we have talked about technology here. But when I look at this, if you look at, what has happened in the last 10, 15, 20 years in India, if you look at the distribution of economic growth, if you look at the GDP per capita income, they have gone up, but the concentration of wealth is becoming narrower and narrower and narrower. And that brings me to the point of education, access, whether it is, at the local level, in village, in towns. How do we tackle those kinds of issues? And unless we tackle those kinds of issues, in my view, it is very difficult for India to project itself as a superpower in the world. So the other side of it, I always think, still there are Indians, and I am one of them, like 35 years ago, I left and found a job in Australia. And in today's term, more and more people from India want to go abroad, study, and live there, work there. So what kind of attraction India should have for these people to stay home, to find good education and find a good job? If we have got, in a sense, unemployment in tens of millions of people or underemployment, so we need to use Ambassador Patnaik's word, is a kind of ecosystem. We need to create that kind of ecosystem in India. And, resources are there, but how do we use those resources, which creates an ecosystem where you have got education, you have got economic growth, you have got good distribution, you have got male female equality in terms of access, rural urban equality in terms of access. So those kinds of questions I keep asking. And since I'm not a bureaucrat or a diplomat or work for government in India, I don't have the right to suggest what India should be doing or not doing. But these are the questions which come to my mind. And I just, as an academic, I want to see and understand what exactly India is doing in order to tackle these kinds of very, very basic questions and issues. And I don't see externally, when I see from outside, I don't see very clear signals. And that worries me as an academic very much. And of course, as an Indian origin person living in Australia for the last 35 years. I think I might stop there. If you want to ask me, want to continue on Indo-Pacific, I can. But, that was about India at 100.
But so allow me just one intervention with your permission.
Yeah.
So you have worked whole life in Japan. Being a small island nation, Japan has been challenging, everyone, Even recently when Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan, Japan openly came out in support of Taiwan. So is there any lesson for Indian diplomats or for India's diplomacy that if you want to great power, you have to wait that your GDP becomes 10 trillion? Or even without becoming 10 trillion, you can, voice your words about global order, about, what is wrong, what is right.
Well, look, to compare Japan and India is a bit of kind of comparing an apple with an orange. Japan is an advanced industrial country with, income. Most of the people, they call themselves middle class in Japan. That's the social reality. But the political reality is that Japan has been in a security relationship with the US. And the only option for Japan is to be with the United States on critical international issues. Of course, we know Japan has contributed the great idea of this Indo-Pacific. Prime Minister Abe, for example, And he was the one who was at the forefront of forming the Quad, for example. At the same time, Japan lives under some kind of limitations with its alliance relationship on military alliance relationship with the United States. Whereas India, on social indicators, India is very different. On diplomatic, indicators, India has followed a very different path from that of Japan. First, non-alignment. Now we talk about strategic autonomy and also multi-alignment. So India is about strategic autonomy, about multi-alignment. So these things give India some leeway to express its own views, and India has it has expressed its views by not voting in the United Nations with the Western countries, for example, or not criticizing China directly, for example, or not making any statement on Taiwan, for example, whereas Japan has in all these things. So it's hard to compare Japan and India. They both have got their own views because of their tradition, their strategic culture, their history, their diplomatic history. But yes, certainly Japan has been a little bit more vocal than usual. Being a student of international relations and Japan's foreign policy, Japan used to have what they called quiet diplomacy. They have become a little bit more active and not so assertive, but quite actively involved in global politics.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. But I have a complaint that today a scholar is speaking diplomatically and diplomats are speaking scholarly. So it happens sometimes.
Can I just intervene for a few minutes?
Yes.
There are so many questions that have come up here. I really don't know. This is whether this forum has the remit to discuss all these things or not. Simple things like you say, Japan is a small country and it does it. We have a structural problem, which I've always talked from the very beginning. The forefathers, our founders of our constitution, made the biggest mistake of creating states instead of going down and creating districts, which should have been the fulcrum of our administration. My whole point in life, which I've always said, is we have 735 districts today. We should have created 735 Singapores instead of trying to create one Singapore completely. It's a structural problem we have. We have to deal with it now. We cannot get away with it. If you would have created 735 Singapores, we would be in a different level today. Each district independent, doing its own economically. That's okay. We can discuss that later on. But you talked about something which I'm very glad you said about what is a global power. There's a confusion. There are many descriptions, but one of the best descriptions which I like because that's what suits India, is that a global power is a state that cannot be ignored on the world stage. So a global power is a state that cannot be ignored on the world stage, and without whose cooperation, global issues cannot be solved. When you look at that kind of a description, then you realize where we should aspire to be. Because what are the global problems today? Which Kofi Annan, if you remember long years back, said problems without borders. For example, climate change. Everybody needs to get together. Poverty, terrorism, and now we faced pandemics. There are some problems which no single country can solve. You need all countries, but some countries are more critical than others. And India is critical to the resolution of all problems in the world. Without India's participation, having 1/4 of the world's population, you cannot solve global problems unless you solve India's problem or unless you take India with it. So in that sense, you're already a global power. When I wanted to make the difference between a global power and a superpower, superpower has the ability to change things the way they want it. Global powers are things you have to carry along with you when you want to solve any global issue. Today, look at the world today.
So, sir, in your perspective, how long it will take for India to become a veto power in UN as per this calculation?
Do you need to become? You see, this is the thing. We put targets before us, which will happen only when we are strong from inside. UN Security Council, we will become a member. People will ask us to become a member when we are strong enough to be there. You know, the problem with it, and I take it from what Smita said some time back, which is that we think we deserve to be a superpower. You know, the rhetoric we have about being a leading power is never matched with the work we do to become a hard power. You know, our people have too much rhetoric. We talk about being a great power, but we don't behave like a great power. That's number one. And we always feel we are entitled to be one without doing the heavy lifting which others have done. You know, when you want to become a superpower, you need to do a lot of heavy lifting. You need to do a lot of things, including R&D, infrastructure, everything that you're looking at. We always want to be a superpower without doing the heavy lifting. And that is our weakness, you know. And the other thing which I think Professor Purnendra Jain was saying was about India wanting to be whether liked or feared. You know, we have this Indian concept. We want everybody to like us, everybody to say, you know, we are so good. We are very prone to flattery. If somebody does the, you know, Sydney Opera in Indian colors, we are so happy. And let me tell you a secret here. And this is something which I can say very easily. It's not. You know, when I was in ICCR, I told the Ministry of Culture, the Archaeological Survey of India, that do one thing. There are national days of all countries in the world, right? You have so many monuments across the country, from Hampi to Konark to this. Just put them in the lights of the national color of that country. Like we get so excited when we see the Dubai Tower, I mean the tower, or we see the Niagara Falls, or we see Sydney Opera in our colors. Those countries will also get excited when they see their colors on Indian monuments. So what happens? You get publicity for your monument where everybody in that country will tweet, will write about it, will talk about it, right? Isn't it natural? Everybody in that country will write, oh, you know, Indian Hampi is in Estonian colors or in Latvian colors or whatever. And so you get publicity without really having to do anything except light up the monuments, which you're anyway doing. But yet I found such resistance to doing that. Yet the same fellow gets excited when he sees the Emirates Tower in Dubai being lighted up in Indian color.
We are hypocritical, sir. We are hypocritical.
The same guy who will not give you permission to put an Estonian color on India Gate or on Qutub Minar. You know, we have to stop doing it. We get so excited when a Sundar Pichai or a Satya Nadella or somebody is in the head. When was the last time you got somebody excited by saying that, okay, Tata Motors is today being led by some foreigner or Air India? We immediately say, don't we have anybody in India that we have to go and find somebody from outside? And then we put classification. If he's from Turkey, he cannot be allowed. If he's from here, he can be allowed. You know, we have to stop doing this. If you have to be a great power, we have to behave like a great power. And to behave like a great power, we need to have systems in place. We need to empower people like Sitara who are doing wonderful work in trying to put together an ecosystem where our industry flourishes in technology. You know, we have to empower this. We can't constantly keep on being hypocritical about our status. And like I told you, we cannot say we are entitled to be a superpower and not do the heavy lifting that is required to be a superpower. Entitlements and you know, this whole thing is we deserve to be a superpower because we have this. We have a great heritage, we have great population, we're a rising economy, so we deserve to be one. But if you have to be one, you need to work on it. So, sorry for being so.
Thank you for correcting me. I stand corrected here. And Ambassador Purushottam, would you like to add some final words today for the R&D section?
Not really. Again, I enjoyed listening to Dinesh, but I agree with him mostly. And I have nothing else to say except to plead really that unless our country turns to R&D and technology and improves the living standards of our people and ensures that nobody goes to bed hungry, etc. I mean, you know what I mean. We really, let's not talk about being a great power. I mean, a great power, as Dinesh has defined it, we already are. But let us please focus on these issues first. That has been my wish even before I joined the Foreign Service, and nothing that I saw since has changed this particular wish of mine. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. And thank you, Dr. Binod, giving a platform and also making discussion very fruitful and interesting. And so thank you, Professor Jain sir, making it clear that India will become a greater power with love. That's with love and affectionate. That's very important for us for today's present scenario. And sir, thank you, Patnaik sir, also. I'm very grateful to you, sir. The way you are having a vision, the way you are making us to clear about the global power or great power or supreme power. It's really, I must be grateful to you, sir. And at the same time, I must very grateful to madam. And always I'm really influenced by madam, the way she is working all the 24 hours. This is enough. This is a great witness for India. Definitely it will become a superpower in coming days. And I leave the platform to Brigadier Brigadier Rajkumar sir to give a concluding remarks.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Ambassador Dinesh sir, Ambassador Purushottam madam, Professor Pranjit Jain, Dr. Binod and Dr. Hiramat, and the generation next. One thing is very clear, that everyone wants the country to be a superpower, a global power, but a power which we all notice. We have the resources, we have the population, we have the will. Only thing we need to have the resolve to work as a team, which I said, sir. And on the lighter side, sir, Ambassador Dinesh sir, you would have been a great military leader, sir, had you not been an ambassador, because I totally believe projection is the ultimate thing. And unless you do that, unless your neighbor knows what you're doing, it doesn't work out. And where we have been, again, I always think as a soldier, I'm a second generation army man, sir. My father was also in the army. So what we need to do is that everything we should work as a team. So that is where I thought we somewhere down the chain we are lacking out there. Otherwise, we have everything with us here. And with the kind of vision what the learned speakers have spoken today, sir, I have no doubt the younger generation who's listening to us today have the platform to perform, sir. And once again, thank you all of you, sir, ma'am, for the wonderful insight for the country to go ahead and celebrate 100 years. I wish all of us are there and look back at the same forum, how we have traveled this all long journey, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Now it's a every great moment for me. It's an incredible moment for me. Don't think I'm exaggerating. Really, I'm really I'm very happy to see you people on this platform and making it clear that once again I'm stating it's definitely, there's no doubt India will become in coming days very shortly will become a great power, a great superpower in a global community. And I must coming to an ending part, that is vote of thanks. It's we are having a tradition again. It's our culture. It is a tradition to thank all the panelists and all the guests and students of IR, those who are studying in Department of International Relations. And now, so I must thankful to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor G. Hemant Kumar, for making our program successful with his presence even in his busy schedule. And he is a great motivator and supporter for our program. And I must thankful to Ambassador Patnaik sir for joining us and making our program fruitful and enlightening us and our student about the global power and great power and how the culture is to be project in the globally or in the global community to show that India will become a great power in coming days. And also I must very grateful to Madam Smita Purushottam, again making us happy to be a part of this discussion and making our program successful by giving our views on this issue, how defense is working and what is to be required to make our defense and strong under indigenization. And also I must grateful to Professor Jain sir for joining our program and making our program fruitful and successful, giving his idea about about our concept India at 100 in a part to global power, again superpower. And I must once again I'm grateful to, Brigadier Rajkumar and Dr. Binod, making our program successful, and always they are standing with me in making all these programs. Because of them, I'm able to do all these discussions. Once again, thank you, both of you, sir. And I must grateful to, I'm very happy about my students. Always they are with me. They are always they are very actively taking participation in all the discussion. I hope they are enlightened by your views, and they will also contribute for future India. They will become a great contribution to the India. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
ma'am. Jai Hind. Thank you so
Jai Hind.
much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll meet again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Students had exams, so we didn't ask them to get involved. Till yesterday, they had, their semester exams. So this time, they couldn't take part directly in the Q&A. Next time, they will be at the core.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good night from India.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you,
See
sir.
you in
Professor,
Mansoor
Thank
sometime.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
always
you,
we
sir.
will
Thank you so
see
much.
you, sir. Again,
Yes.
we want to see you on our platform, sir.
Thank you. Okay, sure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Binod, sir. Thank you so much.
Sir, Jai Hind, always.
Jai Hind. Jai Hind. Always to you, sir.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Bye.
sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Jai Hind, sir.
Jai Hind.